it sounds complicated because we don't know, like
Right.
we
We
think
don't
of
know
farming
exactly.
and we think of a massive farm, right? We think of a massive farm where you got to pick everything and you got to harvest and do the whole process. But when you break it down to it being a simple concept and you're just doing it to feed a family unit, right? Like it's something that I saw a meme online once that it was like, all right, imagine a whole neighborhood, everybody decided to grow something. And then you guys exchange. Like somebody grows carrots, somebody grows tomatoes, somebody grows heads of lettuce, so on and so forth. And everybody did an exchange of goods, right? Like ultimately, could you imagine how much cost you'd be saving from the grocery store?
Well, that's how they used to be back in the day.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
people did. They grew their own food and they shared it.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Memo, Florida Real Estate. I am Robert Kenneth Morillo, broker associate with Compass Florida, license number BK3373543. What's going on, John?
Good morning, John Sepulveda, the origin point on MLS 1309244. How you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Can't complain. It is now Thursday. Gearing into the middle to the end of the week, really. What about you? How are you today?
Good, good. Just plugging away, busy, keeping track on the data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, waiting for May 10th.
How'd that PCI report come in?
So it came in as expected, right? The consumer, the report showed that inflation dropped from 6 to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
9.2 is the number, by the way. You asked me yesterday what the peak was. 9.2.
Okay.
So and we're down, that number to 5%. So it's dropped significantly. But the
Mm-hmm.
headline number, which takes out the housing and the energy, which as we talked about yesterday, it came in at expected, 0.6%.
Mm-hmm.
So it came in as expected, right? No, so nothing. The the PCI, the main number came in lower, but the core, which is stripping out energy and housing, came in as expected.
Mm-hmm.
So the market is kind of looking at that because it came in the number came in high, it increased, right? So that's what they're expecting. So rates are still high. Then you have some Fed members saying, we need to continue, others saying we need to cut, and that's kind of where the market lies, right? There'll be another month of that. But you definitely see, and now what's funky is you look at the charts and and it's there, right? So we're 1 month away. It's there. You can't, this is not a hypothesis. This is like, you see the plots on the chart. So next month, next month is not May 10th is not the destination, right? It's not where we're going to land. Rates are not going to, May 10th suddenly, be at 5%. That's not, it's when I said last week, I feel like we're at the top of the roller coaster, right? And we're starting
Mm-hmm.
to, and I really do feel that. Even though this last report with the jobs came in basically what it was expected, but the ADP was lower. But you see the data, you see the reports, that you see the housing on the chart, on the PCI report. You look at the housing chart and you see that it's starting to, it's been peaking now, and it's just started to slightly come down. So it should start heading down and measuring with last year's numbers. May 10th report should be a good report. If they were looking at as we've done this, right? If they're looking at the real data for housing,
Mm-hmm.
the number would have been, instead of 5.6 for inflation, 3.2%.
Yeah, I
Difference.
remember when when we were looking at that chart in episode
Now
one.
that chart was last month's chart, right? So now looking at the current data, the
Mm-hmm.
actual inflation, or the report would say 5.2%. So next month, following that same train of thought, next month, the headline should be, oh my God, where did this come from? Inflation's coming down. We don't know. Oh my God, like the Fed's going to stop, and the market will react heavily to it once they see that number in the threes. Oh my God, the Fed's going to pivot. It's definitely going to pivot, and you'll see and there'll be, that's what I suspect will happen. Oh my God, where is this coming from? What happened? Oh my God, the inflation worked. Oh my God, like you'll see. But that's been data. That's been there all along. They don't seem to be really looking at that data and kind of analyzing and paying attention to it. So we'll see. We'll see what that shows. We got another month to go.
We got 27 days.
I got another sort of interesting little bit of data that I picked up as we've been talking about the commercial real estate. Right. So here's a real example of what I've been saying, right?
Of what's going on.
Houston apartment owner, Apple's Way.
Apple's
Way Investment Group lost around 3,200 units to foreclosure as their floating debt went from 3.4% to 8%.
So they lost 31 units?
3,200.
3,200 units?
Foreclosed.
Like the foreclosure already went through?
I'm just reading the report. That's just a report. Rapid pace of Fed rate hikes beginning to have a large impact on commercial loans. Houston apartment owner Apple's Way Investment Groups lost. I mean, it's already lost around 3,200 units to foreclosure as their floating rate debt went from 3.4% to 8%. A record $151.8 billion in U.S. mortgages backed by rental apartment buildings are set to expire this year. So it's unlikely that Apple's Way will be the last to experience this. That's exactly what I've been saying. Like think about that. 3.8% to 8% overnight, because the adjustments, the arms are adjusting. You can't afford that. It's because it's not one unit. These units are multiple units, not one unit.
It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity. I hate to say it that way, but
well, it always is. Every time there's a recession, that's what happens. I mean, some people break and some people make it. And then that's, most fortunes are made during a recession. That's when companies
anticipating there's got to be a fault in the property managers for these situations, because if they're anticipating a rate increase, why don't they try to refinance before that time is up? Or
because the rates have been going up, but they raised, we went from 0 to 5 in a year. It's insane. I mean, nobody could prepare. In 2018, when you signed up for a 5-year arm, and you bought this commercial property, or you refinanced into this, apartment building that you're doing as a commercial, in 2018, there's no way you would know that 5 years later this would be happening. Like there's just no way. Like there's no way you would be able to prepare for that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this, like,
if they refied, and if they did say that, oh my God, we got to refi in the past year, they would not have been able to refi because the rates are higher. So they would still be going in there and be like,
they definitely could have refied, because even though rates are higher, right? Assuming that they have added value to the property and increased the rents, then
people are not looking at that, man. People are not. The Silicon Valley Bank, and the Fed chair of San Francisco. This is the Fed chair. Like, this is the person that for the FDIC, for the banking commission, the San Francisco Fed are the ones that have to sort of monitor these banks, right? So the head of the San Francisco chair with Silicon Valley Bank, well, this stuff is happening, and they've known about it. The data's there. The stuff that they've known that this is coming. They're worried about diversity and inclusion and environment. which is great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything absolutely wrong with worrying about that. However, the person that's in charge of banking should be worrying about banking, not about the environment. Worry about the environment at home, but your 9 to 5 job, your main responsibility is to oversee banks because people's money and people's livelihoods are in there. So, if you want to worry about the environment, then go get a job at the environmental agency and focus on the environment. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, I mean, if I'm in the mortgage industry, I need to be aware of what's happening in the mortgage industry. I can't be looking at, I don't know, the car industry. Doesn't, I can have all the knowledge I want in the world for the car industry, but I got to worry about mortgage.
It's not going to serve you well.
It's not going to
clients that you serve
and the clients that I serve. So, I mean, you know what I mean? So, but that's just an example of what's coming. I mean, that's real. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? That's not me just reading a report and kind of repeating it back to you. Like, that's real data, 3,200 units. And the number, I mean, if you do the math from 3.8, is it 3.8, 3.4, 3.4. So it's more than double.
Yeah,
it's overnight. It's overnight. Like, it's not. I mean, and it just, I don't know.
I would have reached out to Grant Cardone or
200,000, let's say. I mean, I'm throwing up a number. 1 month, 30 term, 3.4 interest payment, 886.
And this is
1467. So from 887, I'm just throwing up a number. I'm making up a number. 200,000. 886. Is that what I said? $580. I'm just throwing up a number, right? 200,000.
Yeah. What the difference would be
at 3.4 and 8%, $581. Times 3,200. That's 1.8 million a month. Additional payment. 3,200 units.
Yeah.
So it's almost $2 million in additional, principal payment.
Yeah.
You ain't getting an extra $2 million in rents. You know what I mean? It's not.
I'm pretty sure they could have done something. They could have done something. They just didn't have their eyes open in time.
Well, like, May 10th, when the data comes out, people on TV are going to say, "Oh my God, what happened?
Where
did this come from?"
Yeah.
So it's the same concept. I mean, they're looking at something else. They're just paying attention to other stuff it's not this. You know what I mean? So, but that's real. I mean, that's the real data. You have that, right? So think about this. You got the pressure on the banks. You got the bond market's crazy. You have people afraid. Now you got small regional banks. Now you got these type of things, this type of action, right? These things is happening. The apartment complex is commercial real estate.
Yeah.
And you throw on top of that the highest number of foreclosures. It's the numbers are going up. Foreclosures. So we talked about in the car industry. So you take a small bank or regional bank, they're going to get whacked on one side. On one side, the deposits are coming out. On the others, they've already came out from small and medium banks, right? That already started happening. Then you throw in some commercial real estate losses, and you throw some car loan repo losses.
It's the recession pot.
It's a perfect storm boiling.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that, I mean, it's boiling. That thing is just boiling and boiling, and you still have people in the media saying, "No recession. We're not going to have a recession. Soft landing. No recession. We're going to be fine. Look at that. Look at the jobs. Look how much jobs are coming. The job market's strong. It's resilient." That's the Janet Yellen said yesterday, day before yesterday. The U.S. economy's fine. This is the Secretary of the Treasury. She doesn't know who's on first. I mean, it's sad to say, but that's where the stage. I mean, she actually said,
"Who's on first? What's on second?"
The economy is fine. I mean, she said the U.S. economy is thriving. We've added all these jobs from the pandemic. I haven't. People just went back to work. People were out of work. They just went back to work. There's no new jobs at it.
Yeah.
But people are feeling it. Gas prices are going back up again. Energy prices are going up. Food is still crazy. Airfares are expensive. Everything. I mean, everything's expensive, and it's
Yeah,
just
that's why before the episode, what I was looking into, that growing food in your own yard, I think that'll be hugely beneficial. We're probably gonna invite the guy, Jim, to join us and have a whole conversation about that, because that'll make a huge impact and prove to be beneficial to a lot of families out here where the soil is rich.
hopefully people do it. I mean,
And that brings us to today's topic, which is multi-generational living, right? It's a growing trend in real estate, and I think it's gonna be a huge deal, right? I'm gonna go ahead and call it multi-generational and co-living, because in certain instances, right, not only do the units that are being built as multi-generational um benefit families, but it could benefit cohabitants where, if you have a home or a property with additional dwelling units, then you can benefit from renting the extra units out, or the dedicated space, right? That is its own, it has its own kitchen, has its own living room, everything. And that can help you with certain living costs. With when you were with Meritage Homes, did they have any floor plans that were multi-generational?
they did not, and I don't think. I think that's a concept that is fairly new in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I'm no expert in the matter. I'm just basing it on what I'm seeing, right? Having
Yeah.
moved to Florida in 2017 and not really anybody like seeing and having too many units that are that are optimized for multi-generational living, meaning either have small, like in-law apartments or in-law units as they call it, or mother-in-law suites is another
Exactly.
name that
Yeah.
they use. But I think that's a fairly new concept here in Florida.
Mhm.
See, when I compare it to Massachusetts, so I'm comparing it to
Yeah, because
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, up north, it's been a thing for a while.
100%, and I'm gonna explain to you what my theory on it is. In up north, Massachusetts specifically, the only place where I've lived,
Mhm.
besides Florida. In Massachusetts, there was a heavy influence of Irish immigrants,
Uh-huh.
and then followed by a heavy influence of Italian immigrants. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
those were the groups that were part of the housing that was built at that time when they arrived, when they were living there, and properties were constructed sort of to cater to those groups, if you would, right? Those were the people that were kind of building that.
Mhm.
And so in the Irish culture, some, but more in the Italian culture, the family living together was a thing.
So they
So they
brought
built
that
these
concept
houses.
over with them.
They bought the houses. For example, the triple deckers. That's the main thing there. So three apartment units, one on top of the other. That's kind of the main thing. You see, some are two
Each
families.
their own floors, each their own kitchens.
Correct. Yeah. Just it's a triplex, right? So it's just a vertical building with 3 floors. So almost
Mhm.
like condos, if you would, right? Just apartments.
Yeah.
Some are 4 units, some are 2 units, but most are 3 units, and they're just all attached. Just row houses and all
Mhm.
attached, and 2 and 3 and 4 families combined. And so what some of these people did was, some in the top floor, like in the attic, they
Mhm.
built an in-law up there, or some in the basement. And,
Mhm.
up north, there's a lot of properties. Most properties have a basement, so they built the in-law in the basement.
Mhm.
So it's either in the attic or in the basement. And some
Or
built
both.
no, because you usually don't have room in both. If you have a basement, you don't really have an attic. If you have an attic, you don't really have a basement. Like there's really not both. So it's,
Gotcha.
you know, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it when they built the house. They did it afterwards, right? They just kind of did it, and it just kind of became part of the house. And now they sell the house, and that thing is there. The basement is finished. It's a, you know, has an in-law in the basement. So the grandparents used to live in the basement. There's always a family member. And then they sold the properties, and the new person that bought it that way.
Yeah.
And again, I'm still kind of speaking on in Massachusetts, right? So you got the Irish, you got the Italian, and then, you know, Hispanics migrated. And multi-general living is very, very popular in the Hispanic culture. I mean, it's just, that's what you do. You just stay home. I mean,
It's huge. You
this,
know what?
this
It reminds me of the movie Encanto.
of the what?
You seen the movie Encanto?
Oh yeah,
The
absolutely.
Disney
That's what
movie?
it is. Oh, I mean, it's, you know, that's exactly what it is, because I mean, there's every family. I mean, there's just people just have, you know,
Grandma always rules.
you know, and then like you got the one son that never got married, one daughter that never got married, that's 60 something years old and lives at home. I mean, that's just they just stay home. I mean, that's just so you take these families that migrated, they're buying homes, they're the new home, you know, and they actually look for units to have an in-law.
Yeah,
That's the
of
first
course.
option to look for, because number one, they have extended family. Number two, it's cheaper to live together, and it's cheaper to live. So
Absolutely.
that's in Massachusetts. So how do I, you know, so my theory is here in Florida is just not a thing, because the situation in Florida is, if you really think about it, Florida is really made up of transplants, right? People like me
Mhm.
who've come from another state and moved here to Florida. So I don't think that there's no that history of, like, you know, they were Irish or they were, you know what I mean? Like that first generation sort of landing. What's happening, sort of the first generation that you see a lot of that are landing in Florida are Hispanic immigrants. Those are the ones that
Yeah.
are like the first generation that are landing. And
Mhm.
they are looking for multi-generation. You throw that, so they're
Absolutely.
looking for that type of housing. And then the pandemic hit, and then in the non, you know, Hispanic culture, where, you know, the kid turns 18 and, you know, they kind of, like, I mean, the expectation is that they're on, see you later, move on, you know, graduate from high school. And
That's
that,
not happening as often these days.
well, no, because the pandemic, right? So
Yeah.
but I mean, the expectation is, you know, in this country, you're 18, you graduate from high school, you either go to college, you go to trade school, or go figure it out, kid, and see you later. And that's just kind of, that's the implied expectation. You know, kids turn 18 and they leave home.
Yeah.
Where with Hispanic, it's not a thing. It's just not, especially first generation. You know, second, third generation,
I've had
maybe.
some parents actually shop for this type of unit, multi-generational, right? In order to be able to keep their kids home. Like
Correct.
when they go to college, they'll get upgraded into the apartment space.
Correct.
So I've seen Lennar Homes has started catering to the multi-generational family. They've implemented a couple of units
Very
that are
small though,
multi-generational.
very small percentage. Like
Um, yeah,
I found.
very small.
Hmm.
DR Horton also has a floor plan. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh, I
Hmm.
love the
Hmm.
DR
Yeah.
Horton. You seen the Camden?
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool.
Oh my gosh, I love that floor plan.
Yeah,
That
because you
floor
walk in and
plan
it's like here and here. Like it's cool. Yeah.
was so well thought out, and the fact that it's a single story home,
Single
it has
story.
a 3-car garage. Like literally, you can split that third car parking space and have that. If let's just say you're co-living with someone who's a stranger or a buddy, a pal, instead of it being within the family, and you can literally have that unit be its own unit because they
Mhm.
have the side
Yeah,
rear
they got the side and you
entrance.
got the entrance. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was that is so cool to
See,
me.
if I was in the development or building here in Florida, if that's what I did for a living, I would
Mhm.
start building two families, two family houses, and or a single with an in-law. Just build
Yeah.
that and build a community with two family houses, and you see how quickly those sell.
Oh my gosh, it's so
Like,
insane. And
like you see how quick, like those would sell like I mean, just two units, just one community full of 2-unit houses.
mhm. It'll be hotcakes. It'll be
Because
hotcakes.
people need it, people use it to the additional rental income helps the person offset the mortgage payment, and it's affordable. I mean, that's just the first home, that should be a law. First home needs to be a multi-unit dwelling. Like you can't buy a
Yeah.
house unless you buy a multi-unit dwelling.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
like
get
before
that
you
income.
graduate to, yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta buy a triplex or something first.
because that will put people in a better position. They'll have the rental income, they have the help. I mean, it's just it should be a rule. Like when you
Yeah,
run
you
for
start
president, make
getting,
sure you put that in your platform.
right. So multifamily is the new starter home.
It should be.
I think so
It
too. I agree.
100% should be, because it's just that there's a support, that support is in there for the person that, because it's not like, they're going to become an investor, a slamlord with, 12 units, just a two-family house. They live in one and rent the other. And if it's
Mhm.
family, it's even better because it's family together. So I'm all for multi-generation living.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. In fact, I'm actually once we close on this home, the yard is actually big enough to put an additional dwelling unit on it. So I'm orchestrating an agreement with the builder who's fixing it up to have one put in there. And we're speculating still, but presumably the agreement is going to be something like they get to install it, they get to put it in at no additional cost, no cost, but it's going to be somewhat of a model home for potential clients because they're bringing in a new product from outside of the country, and they want to be able to model it to prospect clients who may be interested in getting it done on their properties as well.
Got it.
So it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be pretty cool to see that.
See how it works.
And part of the plan for that is that's where the podcast studio is going to be. So we'll actually be recording the podcast in there, once that's all hooked up and ready to go.
Cool.
So
Looking forward to it, man.
it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm excited about that. So let's see here. What else do we got? Dun, 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 dun. I mean, granted, on top of the multi-generational stuff, all of those foreclosed units, that multi-family situation, period, all of that is extremely opportunistic. Um, in the development space, I mean, I see two things happening. I think one, I mean, have you seen communities where the builders are building to rent now?
They're starting to, absolutely. I
Yeah.
haven't. I mean, I haven't personally seen and know like a specific example, but it makes sense. I mean, if they can't, the buyers are not coming through the door, and here in Florida, the rental is needed.
I forget the builder's name, but it was out right in between Kissimmee and St. Cloud. There's this community being built where we we were in between showings, and I was like, you know what? I saw these signs. Let's go check it out real quick before the other house opens up to view, right? So we went and checked it out, and we were surprised to see that the builder was not selling any homes at all. They were literally just renting only. So what I foresee in that model, that business model, is that's something they could rent out every unit, which it most likely will rent out, right? And I see investors, that particular developer most likely selling that whole portfolio off once it's completed.
That makes sense.
Because I mean, essentially you have a divided multi-family complex, like the way it's being rented out,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, if it's got to be, you got to obviously be able to carry that the carrying costs of that are
Mhm.
astronomical.
Yeah, but again, it's being rented with I have the one sheet. I forget where I have it at, but I'll pull it out for future reference because I believe they also have fees similar to an HOA, even though they don't own the home, right?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they do
So,
to maintain it. But what I'm saying is the holding costs of that are just astronomical.
oh yeah,
At
but think about it.
current rates, the holding costs are, that's a big risk.
But the thing
Because-
is, they're not paying retail, right? They most likely raised money to be able to do this kind of project. So either they accumulated the wealth themselves to be able to develop it and hold it themselves, and they're doing things at their own cost, right? Not really at retail value.
I understand that, but they didn't plan that yesterday. Is what I'm saying. Like that doesn't get planned overnight.
Oh
And-
yeah.
And
This,
and,
it-
and
it might have been
whenever
years of planning.
whenever they started planning it,
Mhm.
rates are nowhere near when they started planning it.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
what I'm saying at current cost,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter how much wealth they have. Because
Oh,
if
I
they,
see
if
what you're
they,
saying.
if they
Like, the
have all the
costs have
money,
gone up.
correct. So if they have all the money, like they don't need a bank, they cash, you still have to account for it still costs you money, even if it's your own money. Right? So
Yeah.
if I take $100 million out of my investment account and invest it and put it into a rental, this complex, I'm making up a number,
Mhm.
I need to get a return on that money. Right?
Mhm.
And so if I have it invested, I gotta take it out of my investment. I stop getting that investment income, that return on invested, and I sink it somewhere else. It's going to cost me money. So the carrying cost is really high, right? So when you build an apartment building, and I don't know anything about construction, so I'm just throwing financial data out, right?
Yeah.
But it makes sense to me when you build an apartment complex, right? It's a vertical, so you go up, right? Once you have the base,
Mhm.
the main frame that's the main
The
cost.
shell.
The shell, then you go per unit, then there's some additional cost per unit, but the shell itself, it's just you do it once.
Mhm.
And you have, I don't know, 5 floors, right? If you have 5 floors and you have, I don't know, 10 apartments in each floor, then you have 50 apartments, right? Then you have
Mhm.
50 units of income producing, or 50 producing income, and you have
Yeah.
one shell. When you build 50 homes, you need to build 50 separate homes, 50 separate shells. That carrying cost is much more expensive. At
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
rates, those carrying costs, I don't think it's feasible, but math wise, like numbers wise, just in my head doing the numbers, that's a tough cookie to crack. Think about this number we just did, 3,200 units, right? It's
Yeah.
not 3,200 units, but it's going to be 80 units, 100 units, 200 units, however many units.
Yeah.
Same concept. If they got on, and those are all commercial, those, even the money from the builder, they don't borrow money at 30 year. It's all short-term loans. It's all adjustable rate loans.
Yeah.
The same
It's
concept.
construction loans.
It's a construction loan. So it's the
Yeah.
same. So the builder goes in, borrows the money to build a house, and then we're going to build this, and then we're going to rent it, and whatever the plan was originally, the arms adjusting 3.4 to 8%.
Mhm.
Overnight. There's no, Warren Buffett can handle that.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett can handle, Apple can handle that. But your regular, small bank, you know what I mean? It's just, it's scary. I mean, if you really boil down the fat and look at, it's scary, man. I mean, at the end of the day,
The greater the risk, the greater the reward.
well, I mean, nothing's gonna, I shouldn't say that. Something's definitely gonna break.
Mhm.
Problem is, we don't know what, and we don't know how bad it's gonna be broken, but something's gonna break. The saving grace,
Mhm.
if you would, is that the Fed can always print money.
Yeah.
That's what they've always done, right?
That's the unfortunate thing,
this
though,
kind
'cause
well, that's what's causing that. It will cause more pain, right? But it's so, they can, it can be, so it's not, like there's starting to be this hype with bricks, right? Because now people are just starting hearing that's been going on for years. Like bricks is not a new thing.
Yeah, I
just,
saw that.
it's not in the mainstream, so people don't hear about it. But that thing's been for years.
Mhm.
So and then this like everything, right? People have different opinions, and then the people, oh, the end of the world, it's over. Oh my God, the dollar, it's over. And you can't really play into that. I mean, could it be over? Everything's over. I mean, nothing lasts forever. Roman Empire, 200 years gone. I mean, it's just nothing lasts forever, right? Things will eventually change. As from all the theories that I've kind of seen and read about,
Mhm.
at least the one that appeals more to me in the sense that it makes more sense to me. Then again, what do I know? I don't know anything, right? I'm just, so we'll see what happens. But out of all this, scenarios, like the doomsday, oh my God, it's over in China and the BRICS and they're taking over the world. And I mean, I don't see that. The data doesn't point to that. I mean, yes, there's I've seen some charts where they compare the population and the GDP of the BRICS country versus the rest, and it's just as much as the US because of the population. And I mean, if you extrapolate the data like that, yeah, they have just as many people, perhaps more. They have their countries and the East and the West, right? It's really what's becoming. It's two sides, the East and the West. And if you compare, if you put China, the population of China, Russia, India, right? Those are, Mexico. Those are countries with a huge population, right? So you take now, maybe, oh my God, the United States is done, it's over. But if you look further at the data, China's a mess. I mean, the economy in China is a mess. It's people. Nobody really knows what China is because China doesn't tell anything, doesn't say anything. But I mean, China doesn't produce other than cheap labor. All really China has is cheap labor. There's really nothing else that China can bring to the table other than cheap labor. Russia's a mess. The economy in Russian economy has been struggling for years. Never mind now with all the sanctions and all the stuff. So you don't.
It sounds like it's just mostly the powerhouses that are thriving.
Well, no, nobody's thriving. No, nobody's thriving. Everybody's, I don't think the United States is thriving. I mean, if you
I'm talking about the powerhouses in those countries.
Well, but if you see I mean, if the United States is not thriving, that has the dollar, the petrodollar, and the dollar as the currency, and it's the highest consuming economy in the world, right? Because if you think about it, if the United States were to stop buying from China tomorrow, but we couldn't do that because we need everything, right? But
everything's made in China.
But what's the United States doing, right? I mean, what's slowly starting to happen is it's what's called decoupling from China, right? So what's happening is the U.S. is starting to break away and start, like you're reading about it. It's taking time. It'll take time to do that, but you're reading in the news, electric vehicle battery factories microchip factories being built, and they're starting to build these factories here in the United States. But it's going to take a couple of years to do that. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
So, but by the U.S. decoupling from China, there's really going to be two. Like right now, there's one supply chain, and that supply chain is no longer. Like it collapsed, right? The supply chain that we know of. There's a lot of the pandemic, and the pandemic had to do with it, but the thing was collapsing already anyway, and the pandemic just made it visible, and people realized supply chain is gone. So supply chain that we know that started with on demand, like just in time inventory and Walmart and all this stuff that they kind of created to be efficient and have more access to these goods and cheaper and so on and so forth. That was successful. It was wonderful, but it collapsed under its own weight. It was so big and so right. So now there's going to be two. There's going to be the East and the West, and they'll figure out wherever the West is. I suspect it's got to be somewhere between in the Americas, wherever the factories are and whatever. It's going to be somewhere in the Americas, and the one in the East, it's going to be somewhere down that end, right, in China. I mean, that's where it's going to be. I mean. You know what I mean? And this is, in China, the China, supply chain will distribute to the East, and whatever they set up here on this side will distribute to the West. And the countries that are aligned with the US will get the stuff from the West, and the countries that are aligned with the East will get the stuff from the East. That's the scenario that out of all the scenarios that I've seen, the one that to me makes the most sense.
Yeah.
It's sort of that scenario. Just two separate supply chains. And so ultimately, what's going to happen? Cost is going to go up. That's just what's going to happen. I mean, cost is going to go up. But the difference is that, and the reason why I don't feel like, oh my God, the world's over, is because really the know-how and the technology that the United States has acquired over the years, the United States still has that. That's the one thing China does not have. China cannot compete with the US unless they steal the technology, which they have been. And they produce these knockoffs. So, see,
all day.
You know how that works? Like, how the technology stuff works? Because here in the United States, I don't think people really realize how that works.
Okay, so essentially, I think what happens is, like now, especially since everything's on the internet, people share ideas with manufacturers outside of the United States, let's say primarily in China, and then I express an idea to a manufacturer in China, they say, "Oh, that's a good idea," and then they share it to the other people who are making inquiries as well. And next thing you know, you got, Nike factory products being remade. You've got all these electronics being remade because they have the resources are so cheap to them. They have the labor, and all you got to do is have a manufacturer who's out there receiving the idea and have the intellect to say, this will sell, this will be popular to the masses. And we don't have to, the copyright and trademarking laws aren't necessarily applied to us, or the person who had the idea doesn't have the idea patented or trademarked.
That could be part of, that could be one.
It happened to my godmother.
But I don't think see, here in the United States, I feel there is less of that. Like, I mean, knockoffs are there. You see,
the bootlegging, the
knockoffs.
Yeah,
like you go, like, like, I'll be honest, like, I have no idea. Like, you could offer me $1 million right now for me to tell you where you can go in Orlando to buy knockoff stuff, and I could tell you, I have no idea. I have no clue. Like, I have
you
no
just
idea.
got to go to the barbershop, John, and ask around.
I'm telling you, I don't know. Like, but you go to New York City, and you go to Chinatown, and there's 2 blocks in Chinatown that every single store is, you want a Rolex? Get this, and they open up the code and they show you. That's literally how it is, right? So you want to knock off Rolex, you go to Chinatown and you find one. So I don't know where that is here in Orlando. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure, but my point is, it's not like you got to go to Chinatown like to get it. Like the guy with the coat want a Rolex and he opens it up.
Yeah.
That's how it
no,
is.
You will have your chances increase in Miami for sure.
I'm sure. Yeah. But it's still, it's not. And I'll speak again. I kind of go back to Colombia all the time because I can speak from I'm from there and I've been there. In Colombia, there's a whole industry. Like there's the iPhones and Galaxies are very expensive. So the people that can afford a Galaxy and an iPhone have a Galaxy and an iPhone, but they're very expensive, just like they're here.
Yeah.
But the bulk of the population who cannot afford, even like here, right? The truth of the matter is, most people in America cannot afford an iPhone or a Galaxy. They just get it because they pay monthly, or the phone company gives it to them for free if they sign up for a 10-year.
Exactly.
That's the only reason why. And in Colombia is not as. It's not as, the companies don't give it out like that, like they do here. Here's the marketing and that's how they get you, and that's fine, right? Over there, it's different. People have to buy it. So the ones that cannot afford an iPhone or a Galaxy have the knockoff from China.
Yeah.
They have the knockoff, and it kind of looks like an iPhone. It kind of looks like an iPhone, and it does the thing of the iPhone, but it's not an iPhone.
That's just like it don't matter what the car can the car get you from A to B. It don't matter what brand it is.
That's fine, but what I'm saying is
those knockoffs you can't even tell. But yeah, go ahead.
The implication on the economy though is the thing. Like that's and that's like, but what you have to. So my point is, the way I look at it, the way I analyze sort of that situation, right? China does not have the capacity to sell a product that is going to compete with iPhone or Galaxy. Right? They sell the knockoffs. But if at the end of the day, when the East and the West split up, if Apple no longer makes their products in China because we decouple and the thing breaks away from China, and Apple no longer is making iPhones in China, my question is, do you think the iPhone is going to cease to exist?
No, absolutely
not, because people are going to buy the iPhone no matter what. They're not going to stop.
That's just like real estate. The market can crash. Let's say it does. Is real estate going to cease to exist?
Of course not. People are still going to, because the point is, now, can China, if that were to happen, is China going to be able to, is the East, right? So this East-West thing, if that happens, is the East going to be able be able to carry iPhones and survive, survive meaning, be able to not have iPhones and replace the iPhones.
Mhm.
It's not gonna be possible because they don't have the technology to do that.
Yeah.
You take Taiwan and the microchips in Taiwan, right?
Mhm,
You
mhm.
split the East and the West. I mean, who's Taiwan going to go with? Is Taiwan going to go with China? Or is Taiwan going to go with the US? Of course they're going to go with the US, right? If China blows up Taiwan, well, China's not going to go to Taiwan. China's going to invade Taiwan and try to take over Taiwan. But if they do that, all the chip factories, boom, they go up in smoke and they disappear because they will not let China get the technology because that's what China wants. Just trying to get in there and get the technology for the microchips because that's the key. Like the chips are the key. Everything without the chips, nothing works, and it's Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
So that's where they figure out the technology to do these chips, and that's what they have. And Chinese don't have that. So you own the chips. You can. That's what China wants. China doesn't want Taiwan. They could care less about Taiwan. It's really the chips. That's where it's at. So they can't do anything without the chip. So that's data. I'm not. This is stuff I've read, right? It's there, and allegedly the plan is China invades, those factories go up in smoke, and so China does not get the capacity to make the chips.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true or not? We'll see. I mean, just like allegedly, Russia went into Ukraine looking for Hunter Biden docs. Well,
all right, so
think about it. If you think about the economy, no, but seriously, like it's a laughing matter. But like think about like all the money that's happening. Think about the situation in Ukraine and China is affecting the economy. Like that's
of course.
You know what I mean?
So with the supply chain, going back to the builders who are building to rent and all that cost, like even building multi-generational and going following that trend, like how real estate does never cease to exist whether there's a crash or not, right? How do we resolve that matter with the supply chain and being able to keep costs low instead of the opposite? Even if we do keep things here on this side, aside from technology,
there isn't.
Wood, concrete.
Well, keep low, like that's the key, right? So before China, so you're young, right? So I'm not that old either, but I do remember, like as a kid, right? Back in the day, made in America meant something. Like made in America products, like Chevy and Ford.
There was a sense of pride in that.
And they were well built, like Chevy, Ford, like all, you know what I mean? But then
when the cars were metal.
Yeah,
real metal.
right. But then Toyota came and Hyundai, and they exported these
they penetrated the market
and made cheaper, and it changed the market. And then they started then they don't really make stuff here anymore. They make it outside because it's cheaper, right? It became the supply chain became about cost, right? Because think about it. Before, the supply chain was you put the stuff on a ship in China, and you send it across the United States. It lands in California. They unload that container from the ship into the dock. They stock it in the dock. Then take the dock. They wait for the trucks to come in. They take each container. They drive it to a warehouse. They drop it off in that warehouse. They unload it from the warehouse. They put it in the warehouse. Then they sell it to wholesalers. So they take that and they break out the shipment into different wholesalers and put it in another truck and bring it to those wholesalers, and they have it in their warehouse, and then they sell it to the stores, and they bring it. You know what I mean? That was the
cycle.
The new supply chain, but supply chain 1.0, if you would, changed that, right? And Walmart changed the way kind of things work, right? So now you have these super Walmart stores, and what did they do, right? They took the comes off the ship, it gets put on a truck. And then they came up with this just-in-time inventory thing. So they take the same container, they put it, they unload it from the ship, they hitch it to a trailer, and they bring it right to the Walmart, super Walmart,
the department store,
which has the warehouse in the Walmart. So
exactly,
they took out all those, but all that was done to cut costs, nothing else. just
Mhm,
cut
mhm.
costs. So they took out all those extra, the labor, all the cost of carrying all these different warehouses and shipping and bringing and going. And now it just goes right to the Walmart store, from the store to the shelves. And they did that to every store, right? So just in time inventory, and that came, but it was all geared about just reducing costs. So it's in China, okay, reducing costs, labor cheaper. So now the supply chain is going to go away, and China is no longer going to be an option. So now you got to have the costs. Costs are going to go up. The labor, it's really the main thing that's going up is the labor, nothing else. I mean, everything else is the same. The iPhone parts come from different countries. They
Mhm.
just assemble them in China.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
So it's just now it's going to be assembled somewhere else, wherever that's somewhere else, United States, another country, who knows? But wherever that is, that labor is going to increase. The labor increase is going to be carried on to the consumer. So the consumer will end up paying a higher price. And that's what will happen is the prices will be higher. Like things were like they were in the 70s and the 80s, right?
Mhm.
And in America, it cost more money. It was a better quality. Make overseas, it's cheaper, lesser quality. You pick what you want. I mean, kind of that concept.
Is it possible that let's just say the whole East-West situation goes down and there's a split? Is it possible that South America could benefit immensely from that situation? Because let's just say, for instance, I'm pretty sure labor is pretty cheap in South America.
100%. And
Like
that
a lot of the what's considered cheap labor
yeah,
here is provided by the Central and Southern Americans.
100%. Like textiles is one example. Like
Mhm.
textiles, absolutely textiles. When that breaks up, the textile manufacturing that is currently in China, it will be in somewhere in Central South America, because there's a big textile. Colombia is huge textile. One of the largest exports in Colombia textiles.
Yeah.
Continue. They've lost some to China, but they still produce, quite a bit of textile. They have the infrastructure. Ecuador has, Peru has, like these countries have the infrastructure for textiles. And they've been doing that for years. It's just that they took it to, and then in China, they've been taking stuff out of China. They do stuff in Vietnam, they do stuff in Cambodia, they do stuff in Indonesia, like this. It depends how the countries line up and who goes with the East and the West. But South America could definitely, Mexico's a big threat. Like imagine Mexico joining BRICS,
Mhm.
Complicated.
How would that change the name?
Oh, I don't know what they'll do to the name, but it can complicate things. It can definitely geopolitically can definitely complicate things. But then
Mhm.
the other issue, like the U.S. Nobody really talks about this stuff, but it's there. I mean, it's real. If you
Mhm.
look at it, the data, the money transfers from
Mhm.
the United States to Mexico is Mexico's. I think it's like 1/3. I don't know the exact. I don't remember the exact number, but it's an insane number of the GDP is made up of foreign money transfers from the United States to Mexico, right? So
Mhm.
the largest immigrant group in the United States are Mexicans. That's the largest group, right? So,
Yeah.
and they all send money home. They work and they send money. They all, the families are home. They all send money home. So you need the banking system to be able to do that, right?
Mhm.
The United States says tomorrow, just like they said to Russia, you disconnect them from the SWIFT. See you later. No more money wires to Mexico.
Mhm.
What's going to happen to Mexico?
That's hard to say.
Cease to exist. Not hard to say at all. Literally, that's what will happen to Mexico. Cease to exist.
You think so?
Think about it. If it's 1/3 of the gross domestic product, overnight gets shut off
Mhm.
because they're getting money. They're producing the money here. The families working here getting paid and
Mhm.
sending the money to Mexico so their families can live.
Yeah.
They're taking that money and buying food and paying rent and buying, what I mean, and using that money in the economy.
Mhm.
Take that away, what's gonna happen? And that can literally, it's absolutely what can happen. I mean, if there's a confrontation and this thing takes off and Mexico decides to get crazy and this sounds like a good idea. I'm going to deal with China.
Mhm.
That's what Brazil's doing. What's Brazil going to do? Brazil's a mess. I mean, Brazil's in trouble. There's corruption. Brazil, the mess that Brazil has, and now they think they're going to deal with China and they're going to be good and we're going to buy oil and yuan. Oh yeah, great. Let's see how that goes in Brazil in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Argentina is part of BRICS. They're talking about BRICS. Argentina's dying. Argentina's going to join BRICS because they're dying. They need something, So let me see if China can give it to me. And Argentina and Greece, that's another, like Greece, that happened to Greece. Greece has collapsed like 3 times under its own, they just collapsed. And there's no money.
Well, if Mexico and Argentina join BRICS, it'll be called Mavericks.
Well, no, and you got Venezuela, you got Nicaragua, you got Cuba, you got Chile, who just they haven't started talking about it yet, but they signed they elected a socialist leaning president. There's a couple of countries, there's Ecuador, Chile, Venezuela, Argentina, Brazil, Nicaragua. Honduras just recognized China, not Taiwan, so they just broke off relationships with Honduras. Yeah, they just now they're on they think it's a good idea. Like I mean, it's mind-boggling what these. But that's
international affairs.
But you know what? The funny, like not funny, the messed up part is that as irrelevant as this conversation seems to be for mortgages, it affects
it has an effect.
It has an effect, and that's the thing. Like if you it affects your life and you're politics. But if you don't know that's coming and you're thinking about, you're buying a commercial building and you're going to look at the stuff and you're doing this math and you're a first time homeowner and you got these plans and you want these things, but you don't really know what the economy's, what's building and what's brewing. There could be a lot of people out of work at the end of this year. I mean, there could be a lot of people that are working today that at the end of this year are on collecting unemployment. That's a real thing. You know what I mean? It's a real danger. And there's not enough, I'm not an alarmist, by any means. I'm not, but there's enough data to point to that. And, people are going on trips on their credit card.
Yeah. That's always been happening. But
that's always going to happen.
The same way the market could be great and you still have those people who are still experiencing hardship. We're still experiencing bankruptcy, foreclosure, etc. So in the opposite, yes, things are going to be bad. Sure. Who knows what's going to break, right? But there's going to be a ton of opportunity and people who come out of it standing strong,
Well, 100%. I mean, just like the guy with the farm with the if they grow the food
forest. Yeah.
If there's a food shortage, who's going to be okay?
The people growing their own food.
That are people that are doing that. Like the people that are seeing that and figuring that out and saying, okay, I'm going to go down this route because I understand that this is what's happening. You know what I mean? It's with the same thing with the electric. We talked about that when, Solar Steve was, the ones that are going to, when energy goes up 20% a year, who's going to benefit from that?
Yeah.
Right there, baby.
Well, so,
the solar, the ones that have a solar panel and not paying for gas.
Right.
Am I
so just to give you an idea, right? A couple of thoughts for like the whole multi-generational and co-living situation. The food situation that they say that they've designed a food forest on just 700 square feet in Orlando, Florida, and it's loaded with over 40 food and medicine producing plants. That's ingenious.
700 square feet, that's nothing.
700 square feet is not a lot.
Nothing.
That's like, if you think of a small room being 10 by 11, 110 square feet, that's 7 small rooms. That's in a lot of backyards.
Yeah.
That's in a lot of backyards.
It's not a lot.
Even if you have half of that, right? That's 700 square feet, 40 food producing plants. If it was, if the ratio was 1 to 1, then 350 square feet, presumably you
20.
can do 20 food and medicine producing plants.
Yeah. I mean, it takes time and it takes a plan, but it can definitely be done. But in order to be able to do that, you have to be able to have a plan. You got to be planning, and you got to have the information. Okay, why should I do this? Because this is what's happening around the world, and I should be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm a strong believer in, if you have the information, you can make better decisions.
Apply it,
and you can make better decisions. I mean, whether you make the decision or not, that's a different story. That's another.
It's all about the data.
But it's all about the data.
It's
Liars figure, figures don't lie, man.
Huh?
Liars figure, figures don't lie.
That's right. That's right. Any last thoughts before we end the show for today?
No. Multi-general living is, I'm all for it. I mean, my kids live at home. My daughter graduated from college. She came back home.
Where did she attend? Congratulations to her.
She stayed in Boston when she was going to college. When we moved here, she was already in college. Okay. She stayed there and finished 2020 when the 2019 when the pandemic started. Now I lost track. Whenever the pandemic started, that year, she was graduating in May.
Okay.
So they shut the school down. They were shutting everything down. She was in Massachusetts. She packed up her things and and drove down and finished. She finished school here remote. When they
okay. When they said, hey, just do everything online.
Correct. So he was like, I'm not going to stay here locked in an apartment myself. So she and came down.
Nice.
So, but she's been home, and my son, was at Tennessee in school, transferred back here to Orlando, and he's at home. And it's a different dynamic, but again, I'm from the mentality like, stay as home as why would you go and pay rent? And, why would you do that? Stay home. It's just, you're in a better place. So, I'm all for it. I mean, to me, it's normal. Like, multi-generation living to me is completely normal, even though
it's not a new trend. It's been
but see that I see the difference because I grew up here, so I have I went to school here, I grew up here, I have the American mentality, if you would. I also have I'm very Colombian, so that part of I'm American for some things and I'm Colombian for others. That's how. So that part is the multi-generation, the family living together, like the
culture.
That's definitely is never left. So it's completely normal. Where I think people that were not used to that, the pandemic brought that. Kids moving back home, and the parents are now figuring out, and they're saying, "Oh, you know what? This is actually not a bad thing."
Yeah,
this it makes it more affordable, and people can help each other. The family can help each other when it's tight. So I'm all for it.
I see that. I can see that. Alrighty then, so we're wrapping up on episode 19 of the DM Florida Real Estate. I'm Robert Morillo, license number BK3373543. And John
Sepulveda, NMLS 1309244. Thanks for listening.
Alrighty, hope this information was valuable.